Everyone. um, let's talk about why Colleen Hoover's books are problematic. Now, Colleen Hoover is an author of what we like to call, or I like to call, the most famous, yet stupid, disgusting, and weirdly romanticizing books about mental illnesses and unstable relationships that I have ever come across. And somehow, a normal teenage girl who happens to be innocent and has no idea of what abuse is and what true love is happens to be treating her like their mom. A teenage girl would describe Colleen Hoover as the the benchmark of what movies and books should be about, of what love should be about. Whereas I would like to tell you that Colleen Hoover sucks. And this is because her writing is very problematic. To start off, let's talk about her recent her first ever adaptation of a movie that is becoming It Ends With Us. Now, that book is her most famous book ever. It's loved by every other teenage girl, and if you're watching this as a teenager, it means you love it too. And you have definitely read it or, kept it close to your chest when you were crying about it at 3 a.m. Now, the story revolves around a girl named Lily who somehow, I guess, comes from an abusive family or something. Hard to tell. It's been a long time since I read it. And she falls for a boy who happens to be homeless, a bit old, which is literally very, very old, older than her. They've kind of become far from each other. Then she meets another boy. This time he's a man. He's very old. He's very secretive. He's probably mentally ill. That Colleen Hoover didn't even bother researching about. And she falls for him, except he abuses her. She deals with it, accepts it. Then he abuses her again. And this time she thinks, you know what, that's it, it's done. She has a daughter. She looks at her and says, it ends with us. The abuse cycle that my generation has been dealing with, which involved her mom and her grandmother, is ended, and now we are leaving him. She does leave him, then goes back to another guy who is as equally toxic, and that's the happy ending. Now, this is somehow the plotline of almost all of her books. So explaining this is why I have to explain it to this, because that's the pinnacle of all of her books. That's literally her genre. If we just talk about It Ends With Us in general, coming back to it, a movie is being made about it, and turns out the characters are so beautiful that even a person as hot as Blake Lively or Riz Ahmed or whoever it is that's being hired for it or casted for the acting is not enough for the fan casts, for the fans of Colleen Hoover books, because the people that they wanted was some sort of fairy godmother popping out of nowhere. Apparently, the description in Colleen Hoover's books, or what I'm trying to say is that the people that are describing Colleen Hoover's books, their concepts, their lives, and everything that they go through, from their appearance to their backgrounds, just seems so unreachable for a normal teenager that unfortunately, even if you try to adapt it in a film that is fiction, it's hard to get things right, according to the new world. The way she describes mental illnesses in people, such as in book, or the way she describes the characters of people in her book, seems so unrealistic and at times so very toxic. A huge example can be of Ugly Love, where the character actually ends up raping another girl, and the fact that those books were censored, and then she released a whole apology video, which was just her way of capitalizing more on the books and hence promoting them instead. Then she later on released a censored version of the books, cutting some scenes out. But that book is also her second most favorite book of all time, and people love it. There are fan accounts all over TikToks just dedicating their lives to Colleen Hoover's books, and it is very problematic to see how all of them happen to be young teenage girls or even boys trying to pray and, just praying over her all of a sudden. It's bad, it's toxic, it kind of impacts the thinking of young girls and make them think that the more traumatic they are or the more abuse they are taking in, the more their life has meaning and the more they are desirable. That is not what love is all about. The fact that a lot of people think that her books are about love, when in reality her books are abuse, and sometimes even generalizing and romanticizing or even normalizing that abuse, is the most problematic thing about her whole genre. She writes in the most basic manner. There's nothing artistic about it. There's nothing even nice about it. A literature teacher can write way better than Colleen Hoover and ends up not getting any credit for it. I genuinely believe she's getting a ghostwriter or something, but it sucks to see that she is so overrated, and not just overrated, but overrated in a bad way. She doesn't take proper research, she doesn't do proper research about certain mental illnesses and just diagnoses anybody in her characters. There's no representation of culture, there's no representation of people of color, there's no representation of Asian people, there's literally nothing in those books. I just wanted to let everybody who's watching this know that there's a great literature out there, and we need to make sure who we are promoting for the sake of the new generation, because social media has a huge impact on that. And we have to make sure that we are promoting the right people, specifically in the media content, whether books, newspapers, podcasts, audios, musicians, actors, actresses, filmmakers, whatever. We have to promote the right people. It's important to do that, and it's high time we cancel her whatever stuff she's selling. It's bad. Seriously. Thank you so much for watching. I don't mean any offense.